On this episode of Delivering Marketing Joy, we talk with industry rock star Cliff Quicksell about what top performers are willing to do that others won't. Hey there, and welcome to another edition of Delivering Marketing Joy. I'm your host, Kirby Hasseman, here once again with a repeat guest, a rock star here in the industry. His name's Cliff Quicksell. He's the president and CEO of Cliff Quicksell & Associates. He's also a consultant and director of marketing for I Promote You. Cliff, thanks for joining me.
Oh, wow. It's a pleasure, and thank you for having me back. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Always good to talk to you, my man. Hey, so one of the things I know about you, if you've been in promo and marketing for a while, and you've seen successes, you've seen failures. So it made me wonder, what are some things that you've seen that top sellers do that others don't or won't?
That's a good question. You know, the reality is I almost went bankrupt 5 times when I started. And I tell you what, it was a real shocker. But to answer your question, one of the things I believe is that most really successful people accept failure as a stepping stone for growth. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people that will fail and it overcomes them and they just basically collapse. But I think people that accept failure, that's just part of the process, they do great things, and it doesn't deter them. They're always innovating. They're always changing and adapting, and I think that's critical. You know, I remember a quote that I saw, and I'm sure you've seen it and heard of it. Michael Jordan once said that I fail every day of my life, and that's what makes me great. Mm-hmm. And you think about, here's the guy that was the best basketball player, in my opinion, ever, and he accepts the fact that I'm going to make mistakes, but he learns from them. And I think that adaptability and being willing to change and to do things differently and to set yourself apart, I think those are the things that's the real success, I think, for most people.
I think that's fantastic advice. And it's funny, I think people talk about failure in a trite way, but I think it's true. You have to be willing to put yourself out there, if nothing else, just with the idea that it could fail, because otherwise you can't do something exceptional. So, you know, you and I were both believers in continual improvement, right? Why do you think it's important to be continually trying to grow and improve?
Because if you're not, you're going to become irrelevant and die.
Yeah.
Real simple. I mean, I'm a big believer in that. You know, it's one of the nicest compliments I get regularly from people when I see them at shows and whatnot is, you're always changing. You're always doing something different. And, you know, the reality is, if I went and did the same presentation every time, it would show, you know, it would become stale and boring. Mm-hmm. So, you know, a lot of times for instance, when I create a presentation that I'll deliver at like an expo or whatnot, I could do the presentation 4 times in a row and it would be different. Yeah. If I did it next year, it would be different because I'm always looking at ways that I can modify. There's new things that come up and whatnot. So I'm always looking at ways that we can actually, you know, change and adapt and be fresh and be relevant. Because if you're not, again, you're going to be stale. And, you know, I tell people all the time, if you're not relevant, you're irrelevant. I mean, it's real simple. So,
yeah.
And that's a matter of fact.
Yeah, it's so funny too, because I like the way you're talking about the presentations, because, you know, both of us give presentations on a regular basis. And just what you said, I'm constantly reading. And so it's funny how when I give a presentation that I've given before, but I've read a new book that is like, I'll change it midway, like literally as I'm speaking, because I'm like, oh, wait, I've got new information. And so I think that's kind of cool. And speaking of that, you've been a speaker and a teacher for many years. So obviously, you're providing value to others when you do that. But what value do you get from these activities?
That's a very good question. Years ago, I worked with a gal who was the CEO of her company, and she used to call me Cliffy, and that used to tick me off. You can call me Cliffy, but not other people can't. So anyway, she said to me, Cliffy, why do you always go to these shows and give away your information, and why do you share and stuff like that? And I said, you know what's really ironic? I get in front of a group of 150 people, and if you ever wait till after the presentation's over, just watch. There'll be 50 people, 60 people that'll come up to talk to me. And it's not all people coming up there to say how great you are. Most of the time people say, I've got a great story for you that falls in line with what you were saying. So I'm one person giving to 150, but I get back just, I can't even describe how much information that I get back. Things that I can use for future presentations, stories that I can use that are relevant. And I think using those stories and that content that I get is not all about me at that point. It really makes my presentations real because you're involving other people. So I really do. And I get a huge rush helping people, seeing people grow. And it's amazing. I mean, I've even had people like this, like I told you, this one woman says, you're giving all your people these great ideas. And I just remember a quote recently that I saw that said, if you think you've got a great idea and you're worried about people stealing it, don't. Because if it's any good, you're going to have to shove it down their throat in order for them to use it. And it's really true.
Yeah.
But you know, and I tell people all the time in my presentations, I want you to R&D this. You know what R&D is? And people go, yeah, research and development. I go, no, rip off and duplicate.
Yeah.
I heard that from Jeff Tobe. I think it's great. Take the ideas and run with them. Make them your own. And I tell you what, it's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, it is. It's a great thing, and I love that perspective. And I say all the time, you know, and I'll have people come up to me and say, "You're talking to your competitors about how you go about." I'm like, you know, it's interesting. Ideas are important, but execution's where it's at. And like I think, you know, when you impart wisdom like you do, and then you see people execute it, that's when it can become really rewarding. I would bet.
Yeah. Oh yeah, but I mean, you experience it too. It's the same thing. It is rewarding, and you know, I think that there's a when you're willing to share, that really opens up a whole many doors that were probably kept closed for people that feel they have to keep everything to themselves. Yeah. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. All right, man. Well, you've answered my 3 questions. I give everybody the chance to ask me one question. Do you have one for me?
I have one that's 6 parts. No, I'm teasing. I just have one question. So I always there's a funny story I won't get into, but I will say, but one of the things I want to know is, what is the greatest skill that you think a human can possess?
Empathy. I think that's a skill. So I think that one of the things, whether it's through business, whether it's in your personal relationships, whether it's in sales, you know, people talk all the time about listening. And by the way, it's something I continually work on and try to get better at. But I think listening is only a piece of it. I think being able to see, feel, and understand what the other pain points are from other people, yes, it will allow you to sell something, but it will also allow you to be a better husband. It'll allow you to be a better father. It'll allow you to be a better human, right? And so if there's one thing that I continually try to work on, obviously listening is a piece of empathy, but empathy overall is the number one skill. I think that if I'm doing that well, I tend to do everything else well too, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, without a doubt. You know, if I can just throw something in, it's interesting you say that, because as I go around and I coach people and whatnot, one of the things that I've really found, and really it's not like an epiphany, about 6-7 months ago, is that, you know, you're always trying to get people to do more and do this and excel, and that's great. But what I've really learned to do now is I really want to understand what they're going through, because it doesn't make, people might not have the bandwidth, for instance, to be able to make 20 calls a day. But you know what? If you can empathize, to your point, with them and say, okay, let's just try 2 calls a day. And that's more palatable for people. And I think when people can get those small hits along the way, then they start to feel better about themselves and they don't seem so overwhelmed. So that's a good point. Empathy is a really good quality.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Good quality.
Well, Cliff, I really appreciate you taking the time. We'll have to do it again sometime. Is that cool?
Oh man, you know me anytime.
Cool.
As
Well,
long as the camera and the mic works, I'm happy.
I love it. All right. Well, cool. Well, thank you so much. That's going to wrap up this edition of Delivering Marketing Joy. We'll see you next time.